"We're doubling the rent, but only for you," my mother said, like it was just a budgeting update. My brother, who paid nothing, got to stay. I was the one who made that empty apartment livable, furnished it, stocked it, kept it running. But now I was being priced out of the very place I built. I didn't argue, didn't cry. I just set down my fork, and 3 days later, the apartment they thought they owned looked exactly like it did the day they bought it empty. At 28, I was finally starting to feel like my life wasn't just a checklist I was barely keeping up with. After working full-time at a marketing agency for a few years, nothing fancy but stable, I was ready to get my own place. For too long, I'd been in a cramped apartment in a sketchy neighborhood with 2 roommates who couldn't clean a dish to save their lives. I'd saved for months, imagining peace and quiet, space that was mine. Then came the call from my mom, Bonnie. "Honey," she said, always gentle when she was leading up to something, "your dad and I just bought a new apartment downtown." "Oh," I said, caught off guard. "Congrats, I guess." "It's just sitting there right now," she added quickly. "And since you've been looking for a new place, why not move in?" I paused. "Seriously, it's close to your office, right?" 10-minute walk, she pressed. "We trust you to take care of it." That line. "We trust you" always hit me right in the chest. I was the eldest, the planner, the one who didn't drop out of college or bail on rent. That was my younger brother Dylan's legacy. Dylan was 5 years younger and had a list of almosts longer than a CVS receipt. Almost finished a course, almost launched a clothing brand, almost got a full-time job. He still floated in and out of our parents' home like it had a revolving door. Meanwhile, I was over here budgeting groceries and filing taxes on time. So, yeah, I said yes. The apartment was empty, but it had bones. Great ones. High ceilings, huge windows, a kitchen I could actually cook in. No furniture, no microwave, not even blinds, but to me it was a blank canvas. And I got to work. First came the essentials: mattress, bed frame, a desk for WFH days. Then a cozy couch, a dining table I could host friends at. I added rugs, art plants, some real, some fake. Every purchase came from my pocket, every detail done with care. The kitchen was fully stocked. The bathroom had matching towels. I even put up floating shelves and hung blackout curtains for those brutal sunrise mornings. Every time my parents visited, they'd look around with surprised admiration. "This looks like a real home now," Mom said one day. My dad, Graham, even chuckled. "You've got the touch, kiddo." And I felt proud. For once, I wasn't just the reliable one. I was the builder, the architect of my own peace. For 5 blissful months, I lived alone. I worked, cooked, stretched out on my couch with tea in hand and breathed. Then came the storm. It arrived softly, like betrayal always does, with another phone call from Bonnie. She asked how I was doing, if the place still felt good, if I needed anything. Then casually she said, "Your brother's gonna be moving in soon." I remember freezing in the hallway, moving in where I asked. The apartment, she said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Just for a little while. He's been having a tough time again. My voice caught. "Wait, you're serious?" "Well," she said, brushing it off, "you've got space, right? You're barely even there during the day." Which was wrong. I worked from home at least 3 days a week. I lived there, fully. That place wasn't just 4 walls. It was my sanctuary. But I didn't argue. Not because I agreed, because I was too stunned to process it. The next day, Dylan showed up. No call, no warning. Just buzzed up with 2 suitcases, a gaming chair, and a frozen pizza. "Yo, Mom and Dad said I could crash here. That cool." He dumped his things in the guest room and plopped on the couch like he'd just gotten the keys to a dorm room. And that was the beginning of the end. The first morning after Dylan moved in, I stepped out of my room and instantly felt the shift. The hallway, once clear and minimal, was littered with his stuffed shoes, an extension cord, a hoodie he must have tossed like it was disposable. The bathroom, a crime scene. Toothpaste caked in the sink. Hair in the drain, his towel slung over the door like a flag marking territory. The kitchen. Crumbs everywhere. Snack wrappers left open, an energy drink half consumed and abandoned like modern art. He had been here less than 24 hours and already my home felt like a frat house. By that evening, things escalated. He had dragged his entire gaming setup, PC tower, 2 curved monitors, LED strips, a plastic folding table into the living room. My living room. My couch had been pushed off-center to make room. My coffee table was now shoved against the wall. I stood in the doorway, stunned. "Hey," I said, trying to sound calm. "You planning to keep all this out here?" He didn't even turn around. "Yeah, my room doesn't have enough outlets, plus the Wi-Fi hits better out here." I blinked. "So you're just setting up here?" He shrugged. "Yeah." "Chill, it's temporary." Temporary, that word. It haunted me. I tried to work the next morning. Meetings, calls, deadlines. Dylan was in the living room yelling at teammates in some battle royale game. At one point, my manager muted himself mid-Zoom to laugh and say, "Is that Call of Duty in the background?" That night I brought it up. "Hey, I've got meetings during the day. Can you keep it down or at least wear headphones?" Sure, he said, waving it off. He never wore the headphones. Days passed like that. More mess, more noise, dishes piling up in the sink, groceries disappearing, milk used up and shoved back in the fridge, half empty, no cap. One afternoon, I found a spoon just sitting on the couch cushion, not under it, on it. I felt like I was watching my life decay in slow motion. The final straw came on a Friday. I walked in after grabbing groceries to find Dylan and 3 of his friends camped in the living room. Gaming, yelling. One was eating straight from a pot. Another had his shoes off, feet up on my coffee table. Takeout containers everywhere. My rug stained. Sink overflowing. I didn't even speak. I dropped the groceries on the counter, grabbed my bag, and left. I walked until my legs hurt. Just needed distance. Sanity. That night, I lay awake in bed and thought, how did I end up here? I tried to be fair. I tried to be the good daughter, but it felt like I'd been cast as the family caretaker without auditioning. You're the stable one, they always said, as if that gave them permission to keep piling weight on me while Dylan floated free. Still, I didn't explode. I played it cool, called my mom the next day. "Hey," I said, "just wondering, how long is Dylan staying?" Bonnie didn't miss a beat. "Oh, not sure. He just needs some time to get back on his feet. Back on his feet from what?" Well, she hesitated. "He quit his last job. Retail's not really for him, so he quit. And moved in with me. And you didn't think I deserved a heads up? We thought you'd understand." She said, soft as ever, "You're so grounded, so capable. You've always been the one we can count on." There it was again. That sentence. What used to feel like trust now felt like a trap. Later that week, I sat Dylan down. "Look, this isn't just a crash pad. This is my home. I need you to help out, clean up, pitch in for groceries, maybe even rent if you're staying." He blinked at me like I was asking for blood. "I mean, I don't have a job right now," he said. "I was gonna maybe try flipping sneakers again, or get back into crypto. Make some moves." I stared at him. Crypto. Again. This man brought a beanbag chair and 3 pairs of shoes into my apartment, didn't ask to move in, and now wanted to day trade on my couch. So I tested something. The next time I paid bills, I casually said, "Hey, rent's due Friday. You good for your half?" He didn't even look up from his game. "Oh. Yeah, I don't pay rent." I paused. "What?" "Yeah, Mom and Dad said I could stay here. They didn't mention anything about rent. Of course they didn't." I walked straight to my room, sat on the edge of my bed, and just stared at the floor. I felt like a houseguest in my own life, like I'd been evicted emotionally while still being handed the check. The next morning, I called Bonnie again. "Dylan says he doesn't pay rent." "Well, no," she said. "We didn't want to burden him. He's had a rough go. And I haven't. I asked. I pay for everything. I maintain the apartment. I stocked it, furnished it, made it livable. And now I have to sponsor Dylan's downtown vacation too." She sighed. "You're doing well financially. You can handle it." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stopped responding. From that day forward, I tracked everything. Receipts, bills, screenshots, photos. I didn't even know what for, just had a gut feeling that someday this was going to matter. And it did, because what came next, that was betrayal in its rawest form. I didn't yell, I didn't argue, I didn't slam doors or send angry texts. I got quiet. That kind of quiet people should be afraid of. I started with a folder, just a plain one I kept on my desk. I labeled it apartment expenses and began digging through everything, digital receipts, email confirmations, even the crumpled paper ones I had shoved in a drawer. Every lamp, every pan, every throw pillow, everything I bought for that apartment had my name on it. Every purchase had a date, a price, a store. I hadn't kept those things for legal reasons at the time. I just liked being organized. But now they felt like weapons, like evidence. I started building a Google sheet. One column for the item, another for cost, another for the store and date. By the time I finished, it was 70 lines long. Then I took photos, wide shots of every room, close-ups of furniture, little details, the lamp in the corner, the silverware drawer, the bath mat I bought on sale, but still matched the curtain. I took pictures from multiple angles, with and without flash. I time-stamped every photo. I treated that apartment like a crime scene. Because it was. My peace had been stolen. I didn't tell anyone, not Dylan, not my parents. I acted normal, smiled when Bonnie called, nodded when Dylan mentioned maybe starting a podcast, pretended I was too busy to argue. In truth, I was planning my exit, and it wasn't just about leaving. It was about taking everything that was mine. I gave myself a deadline, 1 more week. On Monday, I made a checklist of all my belongings, furniture, electronics, dishes, decor. By Wednesday, I had already scheduled a moving truck. I chose a box truck big enough for a 1-bedroom, and I booked it for Saturday morning. Dylan didn't suspect a thing. He was too busy yelling at his game or asking me to grab more oat milk. His version of life was lounging on my couch, scrolling TikTok and thinking of ways to monetize his personality. Meanwhile, I was packing in silence. Every night after work, I'd box up one corner of the apartment. The guest linens, my bookshelf, the spare mugs. I did it in stages, never enough to raise suspicion. By Friday, everything that was mine was packed, labeled, and ready by the door. Friday night, I sat alone in the apartment for the last time as it was. The shelves were empty, the art taken down. The only thing left out was the couch and my mattress, which I'd handle in the morning. It looked hollow already. I made myself a cup of tea, sat on that couch, and stared at the glow of the city outside the window. That space had been my sanctuary once, but now it felt like someone else's dream, a place where I was tolerated, not respected, a tool, not a tenant, and I was done being the tool. Saturday, 9:00 a.m. The moving truck pulled into the loading zone. Dylan was still asleep. I buzzed the movers up and we got to work. First came the couch, then the rugs, the side tables, the floor lamp. We moved fast. I had everything organized with Post-its. What was mine went. What wasn't mine, which was mostly Dylan's beanbag and gaming chair, stayed. About an hour in, he finally emerged from the guest room, hair sticking up, pajama pants twisted. He rubbed his eyes and looked around like a bomb had gone off. Wait. What's going on? I didn't stop rolling up the rug. I'm moving. He blinked. Moving where out? He stepped further into the room. You're like, taking all this? Yep. He looked around at the half-empty space, eyes darting like he was trying to find an anchor. You're seriously taking the couch. It's mine. I bought it. I have the receipt if you'd like a copy. You're taking the dining table too. I nodded. The plates. The coffee machine. I turned toward him. What did you bring here, Dylan? A gaming chair and frozen pizza. That's it. He looked genuinely lost. Then finally the panic settled in. I'm calling Mom. Go ahead. I kept moving, packing the last of the bins, loading the TV into its box, bagging up the bath towels. My phone started buzzing 2 minutes later. Bonnie. I didn't answer. Then Graham. Then Bonnie again. Then came the texts. Lewis. What's happening? You can't take everything. This isn't right. You're being dramatic. I ignored them all. At noon, the truck was loaded. I stood in the doorway one last time, looking at the hollow apartment I had once filled with warmth. Now it looked like a showroom after a clearance sale. Empty walls, scuffed floors where the rug used to be. Dylan stood in the middle of it, all arms folded. "You're screwing me over," he said. I stared at him dead calm. "Then pay rent, buy furniture, grow up," and I left. 1 hour later, after dropping everything in storage, my phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from a law firm. My parents were suing me. $14,000 for damaged property theft of furnishings and compromising the unit's functionality. They were serious. They didn't just betray me, they declared war, and they had no idea I'd already won. The email had that signature lawyer tone, formal, polite, threatening. It said I had unlawfully removed essential property, had compromised the apartment's intended function, and owed $14,000 in damages. I read it 3 times. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was insane. My parents, my own family, were suing me for taking what was mine. So I did the only thing I could. I forwarded everything to my lawyer, Hannah. She'd helped a friend of mine through a rough divorce. Smart, calm, a little scary in the best way. I called her that afternoon, explained everything. She didn't even blink. "Send me the receipts, the photos, and the text," she said. "We'll file a counterclaim for court costs and damages." And just like that, I had backup. Meanwhile, my phone didn't stop buzzing. Bonnie left me 5 voicemails in a row, her voice cracking, half pleading, half scolding. "Lewis, how could you do this? This is not how family works. You've left your brother with nothing. Then came Graham, more direct, more controlled. You're overreacting. This isn't a legal matter, it's a family one. You're costing us money we don't have. You need to call off your lawyer. And Dylan." He sent a paragraph-long text that started with "bro" seriously and ended with, "You nuked the family over some furniture." I didn't reply. Because this wasn't about a couch. It was about how I had been treated for years. I was always the fallback, the safe one, the daughter they leaned on when things fell apart. They praised my stability while quietly loading me with the emotional and financial baggage no one else would carry. I had stayed silent for years, cleaned up Dylan's messes, bit my tongue during family dinners when he got away with everything, but not anymore. Now I was defending myself with documents, photos, bank statements, timestamps, and a lawyer who knew exactly what to do. Hannah built our response within days. We weren't just defending, we were going after court fees and damages. I had every receipt, every message, even the text where Graham had written, "We're lucky you made the apartment livable. We didn't do a thing." That went straight into our folder. Meanwhile, I moved into a short-term rental. Just a quiet place outside the city while everything settled. No furniture drama, no yelling gamers, no late-night microwave burrito explosions. Peace. Every morning I woke up without hearing someone shouting at a screen felt like a victory, but the silence from my parents, that was louder than anything Dylan had ever screamed, until it broke. A week before the court date, Bonnie called again. I answered. Her voice was soft, controlled, but cracked in the corners. "Sweetheart," she said, "we didn't mean for this to go so far." I didn't respond. She continued, "We're just trying to help Dylan. He's struggling. We didn't realize how much all of this meant to you. You didn't realize I said, even after I asked for help, even after I begged you to be fair." She sighed. "You didn't have to be so dramatic. We're family." I let that sit in the air. "I didn't want this," I said, "but I'm not your doormat and I'm not your backup plan." Then I hung up. The next message came in the form of an email, a carefully crafted one, no doubt written with the help of their lawyer. "We regret the escalation. We were only trying to provide temporary support for Dylan. We never intended to hurt you or cause division. Too little, way too late. Intent doesn't erase impact. You don't get to rewrite the story just because the ending didn't suit you." I didn't respond. The night before court, Hannah and I met to finalize the documents. We had everything tabbed, labeled, printed, and scanned. Over 50 receipts, Before and after photos, screenshots of text messages, my spreadsheet showing every dollar spent from the $1 $100 sofa to the $12 spatula. She smiled when she reviewed it. "They're going to try to play the sympathy card," she said. "Don't react. Let the paperwork do the talking." I nodded, because I wasn't walking into that courtroom as their daughter anymore. I was walking in as someone they tried to gaslight, manipulate, and sue, and I wasn't playing along. Court wasn't like the movies. There were no dramatic gavel bangs, no gasps from the gallery, just rows of uncomfortable chairs, beige walls, and the quiet shuffle of paperwork. But still, every step I took into that room felt heavier than the last. My parents were already seated at their table when I walked in. Bonnie looked pale, but composed, hands folded like she was preparing for a parent-teacher conference. Graham avoided my eyes entirely, pretending to read through his notes like he hadn't sued his daughter over her own belongings. And Dylan, he wasn't there. Of course he wasn't. This wasn't his fight. He never lifted a finger to earn anything in that apartment, only ever expected it. Just like always. Their lawyer, a man named Richard Davis, slick suit, overly rehearsed smile, stood up first. He went straight into it, talking about expectation of shared furnishings, the spirit of family cooperation, and the assumption of permanence. He even showed a printed photo of the apartment when it was still furnished. "As you can see, Your Honor, the unit was intended to be livable, not gutted." Then Hannah stood. She didn't rush, didn't raise her voice. She just calmly opened our binder, slid the tabs across to the judge, and said, "We have over 50 receipts, all in my client's name. We have time-stamped photos of the apartment on the day she moved in, completely empty. We have bank statements. We have proof of delivery and even text messages from the plaintiffs acknowledging her work." The judge flipped through the binder slowly. He nodded, asked one question. "Do you have documentation that the plaintiffs purchased any of these furnishings?" Their lawyer hesitated. "We don't have receipts," he said finally, "but we argue there was an implied gift." Hannah leaned forward just slightly. "If placing a couch in an apartment you're paying to live in counts as an irrevocable gift, Your Honor, then I suggest we all stop letting friends borrow chairs." The judge actually laughed, and I knew in that exact moment that it was over. 5 more minutes of polite formality and the verdict came. Case dismissed. Their claim had no merit. But then our counterclaim. Hannah presented a spreadsheet, every dollar I had spent, every moving expense, my storage rental, the short-term lease I had to scramble for when I left, even screenshots of texts where my parents acknowledged the apartment's condition before I moved in and praised what I'd done after. The judge took one look at it all and said, "This documentation is thorough and persuasive. I'm awarding the defendant $8,400 in court costs and damages." Just like that. Bonnie's face fell like someone pulled the strings holding her smile together. Graham closed his eyes like he could wish it away. There was no scene, no breakdown, just silence. They didn't even look at me as I walked out of that courtroom. But outside, standing by my car, I got a text from Dylan. You couldn't just talk to them. Had to blow everything up. I blocked the number. 3 hours later, Bonnie called. I answered. Her voice was small, trembling, still clinging to that sugary sweetness she always used when trying to stay the good mom. "Louis?" "We don't have that kind of money." I stayed quiet. "We just thought you could have handled this with a conversation. It didn't have to be court." I let the silence hang. Then I said, "You made it court." I just responded. Another sigh. "You didn't have to take it that far." "I didn't take it far," I said. "You did." And I documented it. Then I hung up. Later that night, they emailed me again. We didn't realize how serious this was. We were trying to help Dylan. We didn't mean to hurt you. But intentions don't erase the damage. And for once, I didn't let the guilt in. I didn't reread the message. I didn't cry. I just made dinner. Sat in my rental. Peaceful. Alone. Free. A week passed. Then 2. Radio silence. I thought maybe that was it, but it wasn't. The silence shattered when I got a call from the building manager of the apartment. His voice was dry, skeptical. Hey, just letting you know. Your brother's been asking if we provide furniture now. I almost choked. Apparently, after I left and took everything my parents assumed they could just hand Dylan the apartment as is. But when he realized I wasn't bluffing, that the place was truly empty, he panicked. He'd been sleeping on a yoga mat for 2 nights. His gaming chair didn't recline. His monitor was propped on 2 cardboard boxes. He texted my parents constantly. This place sucks. Why didn't you replace anything? Do I seriously have to buy my own silverware? Yes, Dylan, yes you do. Word got around through a cousin that my parents were trying to sell the unit. They'd spent thousands in legal fees. They couldn't afford to refurnish it. And the unit looked barren, like someone had moved out mid-breakup and never looked back. It sat on the market for weeks. Potential buyers walked into a space with scuffed floors, bare walls, and zero charm. One even reported seeing a pizza box in the fridge during the tour. Their little family investment dream turned into a money pit. Eventually, they sold the unit way below asking. After closing costs, taxes, and the money they had to pay me, they barely walked away with anything. Definitely not the big win they expected. As for Dylan, he moved back in with them. And that resentment. Oh, it festered. He blamed me for everything, for ruining his chance at stability, for making things harder for everyone, for not just leaving the furniture. A few weeks after the sale, he texted me from a new number. You could have just been chill. You made it worse for all of us. They're struggling now, and it's your fault. I didn't reply, because deep down, he knew exactly what he did, and I knew exactly what I had protected. Me. With the apartment sold and Dylan boomeranged back into our parents' house, the drama mostly faded into silence. I thought I'd feel vindicated, like there'd be some victorious drum roll in my chest. But the truth, I just felt calm, like walking out of a storm barefoot and blinking into sunlight. I had my money, my receipts, my boundaries intact, but most importantly, I had peace. For the first time in years, no one was asking me to carry a weight they refused to acknowledge. I used part of the court award to put a down payment on a modest 1-bedroom condo outside the city. Nothing flashy, just clean, quiet, and finally mine. Every piece of furniture I unpacked, I did with purpose. My sofa, my art, my lamp. I made a small home office, lined the windows with sheer white curtains, got a sturdy kitchen table, and for the first time in a long time, a sense of permanence. I didn't invite anyone to the housewarming. No parents, no Dylan, no cousins trying to mediate. Just a couple of close friends, some takeout, and a bottle of wine. It wasn't a party. It was a ceremony, a quiet little ritual of ownership and peace. This was my line in the sand. A week later, I got a message from Graham. Simple, short. We made mistakes. You're still our daughter. And I remember staring at it for a long time. Still our daughter, as if that alone granted them a pass, as if biology canceled out betrayal. But that's the thing about family. It's not just DNA, it's behavior. It's who shows up and who steps on you when they're climbing toward their own version of comfort. They wanted me to be the stable one, forever. The one who handled it, the one who made things easy, quiet, cheap. They gambled on me staying passive, staying helpful, staying loyal even when loyalty became a prison. And they lost. What I took from that apartment wasn't furniture. It was proof. Proof that I mattered. That I wasn't a side character in someone else's drama. I wasn't Dylan's babysitter or my parents' discount tenant or the silent facilitator of other people's comfort. I was and am my own damn person. They tried to treat me like a resource, and I reminded them I'm a person with limits. And the best part, I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I didn't lose my cool. I just documented everything, stood my ground, and let the truth do the heavy lifting. Let them sit in their silence. Let Dylan learn what rent costs. Let the echo of an empty apartment remind them of the daughter they pushed out, then tried to punish for leaving. Now I work in my own space. I brew my own coffee in the morning without having to ask. Did someone finish the creamer and leave the carton? I walk barefoot across clean floors that no one else wrecks. I sleep, deeply, peacefully. because no one is yelling at a video game past midnight 3 feet from my bed. And when people ask me why I'm so careful with my boundaries, now I tell them. Because the last time I ignored the red flags, I ended up sued by my own parents over a toaster and a couch. Have you ever been made to feel like your stability was a license for others to take advantage of you? Drop your story in the comments. And if you're walking away from your own version of Dylan or Bonnie or Graham, don't apologize. Just document, draw your line, and walk out.